with exercise, the whole thing about faith and forgiveness. You see, there's something about knowing that there are certain things which are out of my control. I can't control these things, but I trust that everything's going to be okay, and I'm still going to go on in spite, rather than, oh my goodness, I can't control everything, and then I'm in panic zone, I'm in worry zone. But, it's because for me, the spiritual is really being in a place where you're trusting and you know that all I can do is all I can do, and I'm going to do all I can do, and I trust, and I know some people define God in all sorts of different ways, but I trust that God, or however is sorting me out, sorting things out. And so I refuse to worry, panic. And that's the whole spiritual development, because a time will come when things will be out of control, when things will be beyond you. And if you have not developed in this space, it can be really challenging. I know the spiritual space is becoming really popular these days. A lot more people are exploring the spiritual in different dimensions and what it means and things like that. So, there's that element to it. And then finally, there's relationships. And I'm saying this is all fundamental, whether you're looking to build a business, whether you're looking to build a career, or whatever it is, and accelerate business growth, accelerate career progression. This stuff is really essential. So overall well-being, which my mental well-being, my physical well-being, my spiritual well-being, and then relationships. And as far as relationships are concerned, there's our social relationships, there's our work relationships, and there's our family relationships. And one thing we need to do is we need to consistently define and redefine our relationships. We need to, we've got to be careful and intentional about who we allow into our lives, because everybody who comes into your life will either speed you up or slow you down. And that's really important. And that's the reason, because everybody you come in touch with, everyone who you engage with in some way or form, they would either help accelerate your pace or decelerate your pace, but nobody leaves you the way they meet you. And that's why when we're looking at, we're still talking about accelerated growth, we've got to really look at relationships. And so we've got to be contributing to the people that we're in, into our relationships. We've got to be adding and removing people. Yes, we would be bringing people in, and we've got to be eliminating people from our lives. And I know that sounds kind of cold, right? It doesn't mean you don't wish them well, but the reality is it's just that, two can't walk together except they be agreed. There's just something about that relationship that is quite toxic. And once you identify that, you've got to, just eliminate. And then there are other people who you bring in because you can add value to them, or they can add value to you, or it's a bit back and forth, but you realize this person's in my life for me to be a blessing, or this person's in my life for them to be a blessing to me in some shape or form. But if rather than this person's in my life and they're a leech, and they're just, or this person's in my life and they bring discord and confusion, and they bring fear and they bring worry. And if that's the case, you've got to eliminate. And also you promote people. And what I mean by that is, because we have different layers of relationships. Some people are really close to us. Some people are not so close. There are some people you tell everything. There are some people you tell many things. And there are some people you tell nothing. And what happens is you keep on redefining these relationships, and you've got to be promoting people. And also there's a bit of regression as well with some people, as you realize that you're on a mission, and this person being this close to me is not helpful, or I really value this relationship. I'm going to get closer to this person because of the value, the potential value of this relationship. So these are some of those decisions that we need to make. So the key thing here is why? Because it enhances our whole well-being. So the mental, physical, spiritual, and relationships enhance our well-being, which has an impact on how we feel, because feelings, in spite of what people say about them, are so powerful. A person who always feels good, well, I don't think there's anybody who ever feels good, but a person who feels good most of the time is more likely to pour themselves in what they need to do, and they're more likely to be productive. So it's so easy to downplay this stuff, and I felt to just put it out there first, because it really is foundational. It's something that's not usually taught. It's something that, people very quickly go into the practical stuff, which is, 5 steps to do that and 3 steps to do all that. But we don't appreciate how much this stuff that I mentioned, this whole thing about well-being, and I know there's a lot around well-being these days that's being, it's becoming, people are becoming more aware of it, and its impact on our overall productivity and our progress. And I just felt to just share that first of all. So I don't know if you had any thoughts before I moved on to talk about mindset, which is the primary reason why many very intelligent, smart people struggle.
Sure. I loved everything that you said there. It really does resonate. You're absolutely right. It is all too easy to just dive into the practical bits without, as you say, setting up all of the fundamentals, the foundations there. And you're right about emotions and so on. I just had a comment from Joshua Korode from New York, who says, "Great stuff, DJ. Spot on about the power of emotions." You're absolutely right there. One thing I really loved, I can't remember the exact words you said, but you said that effectively anybody who's in our life is either building us up or detracting from us. Nobody is kind of leaves us the same as we were when they arrived. And I guess the thing that really resonated for me was, that means that's the same for me in other people's lives. I'm either helping somebody's life become better or I'm bringing it down. Mm-hmm. I'm not. So we're all, something to be aware of, we're all making a difference, positive or negative difference in people's lives. None of us don't affect other people. And that's a really powerful thing to realize.
And scary as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Yeah. So, thanks for that. And thanks for the comment there. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so now mindset. Now, mindset is mindset's another thing that we talk about. It's the primary thing that makes it difficult for really brilliant people to really enjoy the growth they want to enjoy because of the way their minds have been set. Let me just briefly try to explain mindset and help us understand why it impacts us the way it does. You see, our mindsets are things that are developed over time, especially when we're much younger, right? Mm-hmm. Usually from when we're much younger. By the time we're 20, our minds are pretty much set for most of us. Now, the reality is we experience things in life, and when we experience these things, we interpret these experiences in certain ways, and we come to certain conclusions, right? So when we come to these conclusions, which may or may not be true, and then we look for, this is what happens, because we come to these conclusions, we then look for things that happen to validate our theory, consciously or unconsciously. And then when we have seen one or two things that validate that perspective, that becomes our truth. Right? That becomes our truth. If a person thinks that, if I talk myself down, I'm more accepted. If I promote myself, people think I'm arrogant and they don't want to be friends with me. So even though I know I'm smart, I'm going to pretend like I am not smart because people don't like smart people. Why? Because in school, at some point in time, something happened where a teacher asked a question. Nobody could answer the question. I waved my hand in class and I was waving, eager for the teacher to see me. Teacher calls me and I answer the question and I'm feeling so cool and so proud because I answered the question. But after class, the other kids in school were picking on me and were calling me teacher's pet and all of that stuff. But not only that, I go into church and it's the exact same experience I have in church with the kids in church, and that's when I begin to think, you know what, I better just, pretend like I'm not smart because people don't like smart people. And now that is a belief that they may have. Now, what then happens is they then begin to behave. You see, they begin to behave based on that lie, because it's not the truth. They begin to behave, and then their mind is now set. It's conditioned to respond to life based on that belief. So they have a belief, but it's not really the belief that's the issue. It's the fact that they are conditioned to behave based on that belief. So what happens is sometime later in life, they may read a book or they may attend a seminar where they learn something new. So they learn that actually there's nothing wrong with promoting yourself as long as you're not arrogant and obnoxious. And that kind of makes sense, because the reality is if you don't blow your trumpet, who's going to blow it? And that makes sense to them. And you're going to see them nodding and agreeing to that because it makes sense. They're exposed to new knowledge and it makes sense to them. And they're thinking, wow, this is so true. They even believe it's true. You see, knowledge and belief is not the same as mindset. So even though they believe that, and even though it makes sense to them, they go out tomorrow, and when there's an opportunity to promote themselves, they won't. You know why? Because even though it makes sense and they want to, they are conditioned to behave in another way. And that's why you see people who they want to do one thing, but they're doing something else. They want to behave in one way, but they're behaving in another way. They want to, because they are, their brains all the time, based on a lie they believed much earlier, has been conditioned. And so they're very smart people. And that's why you see very intelligent, smart people who just, because of certain beliefs and certain mindsets, they're not able to take the actions. And we underestimate how powerful this thing is, the actions they need to take consistently. Now, even if they do it once or twice, they don't feel comfortable with it. And so they stop and they go back to how their mind has been conditioned for them to behave. And so this is the real challenge. This is, I mean, there's a few other things, but that's the real challenge. And you can preach at them, and you can even, but it's a mindset. The mind is set. It's just like, it's set, it's just like clay. You can mold clay, you can change it, the difference between clay and Play-Doh is Play-Doh, you can always play around with it. Clay is different. You can play around with it when it's still soft, but as soon as it's set, that's it. And that's the thing with our minds, is many of us, our experiences, of course, conditioned us, and our mindset is actually holding us back because we believe the lie that is making it difficult for us to break through, and whatever breakthrough means in our career and our businesses. And that is the real challenge.
Got it.
That is the real challenge.
Yeah. So what do we do? What do we ask? I mean, that's a heck of a challenge, heck of a situation to be in there.
Yes. And it's, so acknowledging that, first of all, it's a big thing. And I think that's the thing. So it's now, what do we do is we need to reprogram. Mm-hmm. We need to identify, and again, we've probably heard people talk about limiting beliefs, but that's what it is. And I kind of, but it is limiting beliefs, because they're beliefs, but it's not just beliefs, it's a mindset, It's a limiting belief that has set, and we're conditioned and programmed to behave because of that belief. So we need a reprogramming. So first of all, we've got to identify that lie that we believe. And we may need help with this. Some of us, it can be pretty obvious. Some of us, it might require a bit of digging. And identifying what this lie is that I've believed. And then identifying how this lie has, helped me. How has this lie helped me to deal with some issues in my life? Because there's a reason why we believe that lie. It actually has helped us. If it didn't help us, we won't believe it. But then we say, but how has it hindered me? Right? How has this belief hindered me from being the best me that I could possibly be? So identify how it's held you back. You've got to hate it. First you've got to understand why you've liked it so far, And then you've got to understand how it's stealing from you so you can hate that lie. That's the first thing. Until you hate it, you're not going to work hard enough to deal with it. Right? So you've got to start looking at the different, from however, how has this lie